Once upon a time, in a faraway kingdom, there was a young girl named Cinderella. She was kind, gentle, and always smiling, even though her life was very difficult. Cinderella lived with her stepmother and two stepsisters, who were very mean to her. Cinderella's mother had passed away when she was a little girl. Her father loved her dearly, but he also passed away soon after marrying her stepmother. This left Cinderella all alone with her stepmother and stepsisters. They didn't love her at all. Her stepmother was jealous of Cinderella's beauty and kind heart. She made Cinderella do all the hard work in the house, like cleaning, cooking, and washing clothes, while the stepsisters wore beautiful dresses and had fancy things. Cinderella had to wear old, torn clothes. They called her names and never treated her nicely. Even though her life was hard, Cinderella remained kind and hopeful. She didn't let their meanness make her angry or bitter. She found comfort in her garden, where she talked to birds, mice, and other little animals. They became her closest friends and would listen to her whenever she felt sad. One day, a messenger came to their house with exciting news. The king had announced a grand ball at the palace. The prince was looking for a bride, and every young woman in the kingdom was invited to the ball. Cinderella's stepsisters were thrilled. They spent days preparing for the ball, trying on dresses, fixing their hair, and practicing their dance moves. Cinderella quietly watched them, wishing she could go too. She dreamed of wearing a beautiful dress and dancing in the grand palace. But when Cinderella asked if she could go, her stepmother laughed cruelly. "You? Go to the ball? Look at you. You're covered in dust and dressed in rags. You will stay home and finish your chores." Cinderella felt heartbroken, but she didn't argue. She helped her stepsisters get ready and waved goodbye as they left for the ball. Once they were gone, she sat by the fireplace, feeling sad and lonely. She whispered to herself, "If only I could have gone, just for one night, to see the magic my mother used to tell me about." Suddenly, the room filled with a soft, glowing light. Cinderella looked up and saw a beautiful woman standing before her. She had a kind face and held a wand in her hand. "Why are you crying, my dear?" the woman asked gently. Cinderella wiped her tears and explained, "I wanted to go to the ball, but my stepmother wouldn't let me. I have nothing to wear and no way to get there." The woman smiled warmly. "Don't worry, my child. I am your fairy godmother, and I'm here to help you. You shall go to the ball." With a wave of her wand, the fairy godmother transformed Cinderella's old, torn dress into a beautiful gown that sparkled like stars. On her feet appeared delicate glass slippers that shone brightly. "But how will I get to the palace?" Cinderella asked. The fairy godmother looked around and saw a pumpkin in the garden. With another wave of her wand, she turned the pumpkin into a golden carriage. Then she turned 6 little mice into strong, beautiful horses and a lizard into a coachman. Cinderella was amazed. "Oh, thank you. This is like a dream come true." The fairy godmother smiled but warned her, "Remember, my dear, this magic will only last until midnight. When the clock strikes 12, everything will return to how it was. You must leave the ball before then." Cinderella nodded and climbed into the carriage, her heart full of joy. When she arrived at the palace, everyone stopped and stared. Cinderella looked so beautiful that no one recognized her. The prince noticed her immediately and walked straight to her. He bowed and asked, "May I have this dance?" Cinderella's heart raced as she nodded. They danced together all night, laughing and talking as if they had known each other forever. Cinderella was so happy that she forgot about the time. But then the clock began to chime. Dong, dong. It was midnight. Cinderella gasped and pulled away from the prince. "I'm sorry, but I have to go," she said, running out of the ballroom. "Wait," the prince called, but Cinderella didn't stop. As she ran down the grand staircase, one of her glass slippers slipped off her foot. She didn't have time to pick it up and hurried into her carriage just as the clock finished striking 12. The carriage turned back into a pumpkin, the horses into mice, and Cinderella's gown into rags. She ran home, clutching the one glass slipper she still had. The next day, the prince announced that he would search the entire kingdom to find the owner of the glass slipper. He and his servants visited every house, trying the slipper on every young woman. When they arrived at Cinderella's home, the stepsisters eagerly tried to force their feet into the slipper, but it didn't fit. Then Cinderella stepped forward shyly. "May I try?" she asked. Her stepmother and stepsisters laughed, but the prince nodded. As Cinderella placed her foot into the slipper, it fit perfectly. The prince's face lit up with joy. "It's you. You're the one I've been looking for." Cinderella smiled, and the prince took her hand. Her stepmother and stepsisters apologized for how they had treated her, and Cinderella forgave them because she believed in kindness and forgiveness. Cinderella married the prince, and they lived happily ever after. No matter how hard life gets, staying kind and hopeful can lead to happiness. Forgiveness is also important, as it frees your heart from bitterness.